You'll put up the rest of the story tomorrow. It's really long, so get ready, guys. Hope you like it so far, and if you don't, you can just go to hell.
You're a dick.
No hating, y'all.
No
Make
hate.
up your mind!
No hating, but if you don't like my story, you can go to hell.
Yeah, okay, you know what? And the thing is, okay, when somebody just says this is a piece of shit, this is a piece of shit, this is a piece of shit, and doesn't offer anything constructive, yeah, I'm not gonna get behind that.
Yeah.
But when we're giving critique, it's something you can do to make your writing better.
Yeah.
And responding that negatively to any kind of constructive criticism, you're not going to get better.
No.
No one is doing you any favors by telling you, no, your writing is so good, when it isn't, because that means you'll never improve.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, part of it is, of course it hurts to get your work criticized if you are actually putting effort into it, but that's part of, becoming sharper as far as being a writer is concerned.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, no, don't listen to somebody whose, comment consists entirely of you suck, because that's not helpful. But, if you've got actual critique, you may want to listen to it.
Yeah. Now, if you genuinely don't want critique, I mean, you just need to say so at the start of the story, and maybe every chapter before the story actually starts. Because there are some people who just want to write, and they're writing for for nobody except for them. I don't know why I was about to say for nobody's business but their own. And I'm like, that doesn't really make sense. I've been reading this story for too long, apparently. But, I mean, that's a thing. I have ran into a story that I really, really, really wanted to put on Bad Fan Fiction Theater, but one of the things says no critique of any kind, and I'm like, damn it! I have to respect that.
Yeah, well, good on you for respecting that.
But I mean, that could be a thing too, but you should say so instead of just insulting people.
Right. And here's the thing. You may just want, as Peachan has put it, comfort food comments.
Mm-hmm.
And that's cool. I mean, sometimes that's what we need. But, there are certain things with this story that they really need to be addressed if you ever want to get any better as a writer. It's like you need to have paragraph breaks. You need to have capitalization. You need to have quotation marks. I mean, these are the bare bones of what you need.
I mean, I would say you should at least write competently, even if you're just writing for your own pleasure.
Right.
Because this could be an okay story if it was, if you just took the time to go back and learn about how to put quotations and dialogue and a few more punctuation marks and be clearer on some things as well as spell checker. I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect, but it should at least be readable.
Yeah. And here's something that she says that I need to comment on. She says, I put a lot of work into this, and if you guys like it, I'm going to try to send it to this place and get it written into a real book.
Where does she say that?
Immediately after No Hatin', y'all.
Oh.
Okay. This is where you can no longer say no critique. You can't, because you are now writing something designed for public consumption that you might even expect people to pay for. And in that case, you need to be writing professionally.
Mm-hmm.
You need proofreading. You need professional critique.
Yeah.
Because you are now not writing for yourself. You are writing something for public consumption. And you are no longer in a place where you can just, be in your little comfort zone bubble and say comfort food comments only, because you are now a professional, or at least you want to be a professional.
Yeah.
You are doing this as a job now, and there are guidelines you have to follow. You can't have it both ways.
Of course, as Hushcho also says, I mean, technically anybody can write a bunch of shit and publish it, and people will buy shit and read it, but I mean, you don't really want to look like a joke.
Right, exactly. And it's like, if you think a few people on the internet making fun of your story is bad, if you somehow got this into circulation as a book, you are going to have publications slamming your story.
Unless for some reason you're doing one of those, oh, I can't remember what they're called, but they're books, but they're not real books. Like, they're books people just threw together to see who would buy them and what they'd be listed as and, you know, what people would say about it.
Right.
Oh gosh, what kind of books are those called? I cannot think of it.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Oh, poo. But anyway, I mean, unless you're specifically doing that to see, like, would a certain publishing house just publish it because and not really care how good it is or not.
Uh-huh.
Or something like that. I mean, you really need to be trying to be better. The book I read, Clean Cut by Theresa Mansour, that was written basically without any more complex sentence structure. But at least it was readable and I knew what was going on.
Right. Yeah, it's like there are bare bones things you need to be a competent writer. You need to learn paragraph breaks. You need to learn quotation marks. You have to learn punctuation. You have to learn when to capitalize things. I mean, just the bare basics. You know, this is middle school level English.
Yeah.
You know, by 16 years old, you should know this stuff. You just have to give enough of a shit to apply it.
Yeah. Of course, creative writing is a little different than all the technical writing that gets shoved down your throat.
Right.
And so you might not know all the ins and outs, but of course that is what critique is for. That's what you write shit to write better shit, to write more better shit, to write even better shit. You know, we keep reiterating these same things because they are important, and that is how you build not only an audience for your work, but how you build yourself to be a better, more interesting writer.
Right. And it's like, even if you get to the point where you are a professional grade writer, that doesn't mean there isn't still room for improvement.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we all will always have room for improvement. You know,
Mm-hmm.
there's always a next stage we can get to. You know, there's never going to be a point where you hit a ceiling and you're like, I am
the pinnacle of awesome. Yay!
Yeah, I am as good a writer as can possibly exist. Even if you are the best writer who has ever existed, you still have room to get better. I mean, it's just one of those things that doesn't have a cap on it. You know? It's just, and again, it's like, I don't really want to bash this author at all because I feel like she does have potential.
Yeah, I mean, you could make this into a good story. It would just take a lot more work and editing.
Right. And it's just like, but if you want to get better, and that's the key here, is that you have to want to improve. You have to take some constructive criticism in stride, and that is easier said than done, admittedly.
And it's also good to know the difference between somebody who's just being a dick and somebody who is offering criticism. You know, I posted about this on the website somewhere in the blog thingy. You know, how do you know when something is supposed to help you and when it's not? And I used examples that I've actually received for the show. The first one was a guy who told me, he just randomly showed up on the video and said that I personally sounded like I was sucking cocks when I talked.
Wow, he actually got a comment like that?
Yes, I did. And
wow, you are officially an internet celebrity.
Apparently. And I'm just like, okay, you're banned now, bye. I removed that comment. And
wow, stay classy.
Yes, apparently. And I'm like, look, I know I'm not the best talker ever. I have no idea what the fuck I'm doing.
Either.
Yes, but that is not helpful at all. That does not tell me how I can improve in any way. That's just an
Right.
insult.
Exactly.
Now I got another comment that was also negative of the show to a degree, but it actually included things like maybe try and focus a little more on diction, or maybe trying to cut ways to cut down on chatter so that we could stay on topic and read the story. Because sometimes we just lose our minds and go off on tangents, which then I turn into talk times. But and even though that was negative, and I felt a little sad to get a negative, comment, it was still helpful. It was still trying to be helpful, even though our show is not something they particularly enjoy anyway. And so it's nice to keep that in mind for, while I'm doing the show. Unlike the whole, I sound like I'm sucking cocks. I've never actually tried to talk around a guy's dick, but I'm pretty sure he would not enjoy that. So I don't really have anything to evaluate how I would sound doing that versus how I normally talk. I was trying to make a joke out of that and it didn't work.
But yeah, I'm never going to say, that critique, doesn't hurt, because it does. It stings to have somebody say, whatever you're doing is less than perfect, but
also, keep in mind, because I've also gotten this as a reply, too. Sometimes people won't even honestly evaluate your work. They will look at, your story or whatever as a general whole based on things they've already seen and know, and then berate you for that, even though that is nothing of what your show or story or anything like that actually is.
Right.
I posted the video, Bad Fanfiction Theater, specifically to a certain website to get a critique on it. And the person who replied didn't even listen to it. They are just like, well, obviously you're doing it and you got people who like it, but how dare you make fun of people for writing stories when when they're amateurs and they're just doing it for fun. And I got this huge paragraph and I'm like, okay. And then of course I replied.
Sounds like somebody is really butthurt. And that's not a word that I like to throw around a whole lot, but it really just sounds like somebody who has been on the receiving end of such things.
Well, possibly, but also I was aware when I started the show that mostly, because see, the thing with what I do and what other people have done is they used to call it misting. Mystery Science Theater 3000 a story. And those, I've been on the receiving end of that. Of course, I was also very young and did not handle that well. But those are intentionally usually mean. Pretty much everyone I've encountered in some way has been purposely hurtful, at least in my opinion. When I decided to do this show, I did not want to be something like that. I did not want to intentionally hurt people. Instead, I wanted a show that, while we might make fun of what we're reading to a degree, I never want to actually attack the person themselves, like some people do, which is why I never say somebody should go and kill themselves for writing the story or whatever. I never understood saying that.
And that phrase is completely overboard, no matter what situation you're in.
Mm-hmm.
Telling somebody, kill yourself? Really?
It's happened. Dude? It has happened. I really like listening to Cloud and his friend reading My Immortal, but they do kind of joke that because apparently one of them heard a rumor that either Ebony or Raven ended up killing themselves, committing suicide, and they kind of joke that they kind of want that to be a thing. And I'm like, guys, I like the reading of this, but that's douche. That's really douche.
That's really tasteless.
Yeah. And
it's like, people are going to be like, oh, lol, welcome to the internet. I was like, no, guys,
Yeah. Yeah.
there's holding yourself to a standard.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there is the scum of the internet, and then there's holding yourself to a higher standard. The question is, do you want to be better than scum?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a question you honestly have to ask yourself. For some people, the answer to that is actually no. They don't want to be better than the scum of the internet, and that's why we have places like 4chan.
Mm-hmm.
Shots fired.
But, of course, that's one of the reasons why we actually, we at the end of the story, we actually talk about, like, well, did we personally like it? Did we really not like it? What do we think is bad about it? What do we think could have been improved upon? What would we have even changed? I mean, that's the whole reason I have that there at the end. We have introduction, story reading, conclusion. And I don't want to, like, toot my own horn or anything, but before I even got that comment, like, I've had several people on their own here and there message that how they really like the show for not doing that kind of crap, for actually just making jokes and then trying to help and evaluate. Like, we don't intentionally talk down to the author or anybody who would write stuff like this.
Yeah, we don't pull the ad hominem bullshit.
But, I mean, if we don't like something, we are going to say what it is, and we're not meaning to be a dick to you. It's just, we read this, and we're like, what the hell, and we're going to talk to you about it. And we don't expect you to be a dick to us, but it's not really going to endear us to you if you're a dick to us for trying to help you, and vice versa.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, it is up to the individual whether they want to take our advice or not, if they even ever listen to the shows, which, for a lot of these authors is probably not particularly likely.
Yeah. But another quick story about that. I was talking earlier about my creative writing teacher in college, how he was an awesome dude. And then there was another teacher with him, and they had a girl who was in their class, and she was so focused on writing this one story. She'd been working on this thing for years. And they both read it, and they both kept telling her not to write this story. That it wouldn't, it wasn't something that would be marketable, it wasn't something that would be well received, and so on and so forth. And he's like, she didn't listen to us, and she just, kept on doing what she was doing. And I don't remember specifically what the story was, if he even gave us what the title of it was. But he's like, she actually did get it published and became a rather successful author thanks to that story.
Huh.
So, people might be trying to help you, but you do know what you're doing. That can be a thing too. It really depends. Advice is just something that I think you should hear, and maybe you follow it, maybe you don't. And that's really all it is.
Yeah. It sort of reminds me of a Ferengi rule of acquisition, which goes something like, always listen to advice, rarely trust, but always listen.
Yeah.
It is a harsh thing to get critique. And trust me, I know, as a creative myself, it's hard to get critique on something that you've worked a really long time on. But
yeah.
Even with the stuff that I've worked on for many, many years, I know there are things that have room for improvement. And I also know that there are things that are probably really good that certain people might just not like, and I shouldn't necessarily change what I'm doing just to please them.
Yeah, also there's individual taste in whatever it is you're writing or drawing or whatever show you might be producing as well. Two people walk into a movie, they may both like it, but they're going to have different reasons for liking it. They may both hate it, but they'll have different reasons for not liking it. Some of them might be similar or even the same, but not always.
Right. Yup, but I think the one thing any budding writer should take away, though, is I mean, when it comes to the creative writing aspect on it, there is a lot of stuff that is very subjective, but there are a few musts, and those are what I touched on earlier. You must learn proper grammar. You must learn quotation marks, learn your syntax, learn your grammar, because those are absolute truths.
Yeah. Basically, learn the building blocks of how to write. And then you will be pretty much set to write whatever you want, regardless of what you write and whatever critique you do or don't get.
Right. And another thing, just real quick before hopefully we move on. If you're going to write historical fiction like this story is, do some research, even if it's just bare bones research.
Yeah.
Because just even like a cursory search will tell you that Vikings were not prevalent in the 16th century.
Yeah. I mean, it's okay if you want to do some like AU stuff, but again, I would say do some research. And even if you're just like making up some shit from your own head for a fantasy story or whatever, I would still say research to see what has been done and what's already out there. And that will also give you ideas for what you can do for your own story.
Right.
I mean, it's not something you have to, but it's something I highly recommend if you're writing fantasy. But historical fiction, you might want to make sure you've got some of your facts correct.
Or at the very least, I mean, yeah, if you're going to be writing historical fiction, like something like, let's just say Assassin's Creed, for example, which in my opinion does a really good job of writing historical fiction. You've got to research your source material. If you're doing it on Vikings, research the hell out of Vikings and not just going to the Wikipedia page, do some in-depth research, because that will help bring your story to life. Research, how, their culture was, and, if you are going to go the alternate universe route, like if you want to say, well, this is a story about a universe where Vikings continued well into the 16th century, say it up front, establish the fact.
Of course, it would also be give you some interesting conflicts and things to deal with, like how would that work?
Right.
I mean, because other stuff is going on, like England and Spain and all of that.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. And there's a lot of interesting things you could theoretically do with that, because, I mean, especially since alternate universes are kind of a hot thing in fiction right now. But yeah, I mean, so if you're gonna, the TLDR of it is if you're going to write historical fiction, do some research. And, if you're going to do an alternate universe, establish that and don't have that just as an excuse. Have an actual purpose in mind for there to be an alternate universe. It's like, do you want to see, what Vikings might have been like if that culture had survived all the way into the modern era? That might be interesting, but have that as a reason up front. Don't just be like, oh, well, we have Vikings in the modern age and, nothing else of significance changed, because that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, that really wouldn't make any sense, because they would have advanced technologically just like everybody else would have.
So yeah, that was a lot of words and you had to listen to them.